Welcome to Speaking Candidly with Candace, where we talk with everyday people about their life challenges, choices, and successes. I'm your host, Candace Schoner, and I hope over the next half hour, you will be engaged, enlightened, and inspired to live your very best life. Today, I will be talking to co-parents Amanda Spaghetti and Brook Mason about their relationship with the father of 4 children, ages 11 through 14. And how they have put aside the traditional role of mom and stepmom. Welcome, Amanda and Brook.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you for having us.
Well, I'm glad that you agreed, and it was pretty funny that how I ran into Brook and started talking about her role as a co-parent. So I want to, before we get started and into the nitty-gritty, is to ask you each to describe your relationship with the children's father. And Amanda, would you like to go first? Would you please go first?
So, Sean and I were married in 2005, soon after the birth of our first child, the oldest, Tyler. And then we were married for, I don't know, 4 years, 4 years, and got divorced in 2009 while I was pregnant with our third, Lily. And it was a very, very contentious divorce. Total lack of communication. It was a very tough, because it took a really long time as well. It took a very long time to get divorced. So I'm the mom of 3 of the 4 kids. I guess, does that answer your question, or do you want me to?
No, I think that is a great summary. Because it's probably very hard to summarize a whole life in a short period of time.
It is.
So, Brook.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your relationship and a little bit of background.
Okay. Well, I was married too young, way too young. Thought I knew what I was doing, realized I didn't. And then, a few years into it, found out I was pregnant, and I thought, she deserves a chance at having 2 parents. So I stuck it out for about 2 years, and I thought after that, she's better off if I'm not in this environment. It was very volatile, and there was a lot of mental and emotional abuse going on. And once I became apathetic to it and stopped reacting to it, he started going after her, and that's when I knew, okay, it's time to go. And then I was single for, I don't know, probably about 3 years, and then decided, okay, I think I'm ready to get back into the dating scene. And Sean was the first person that I went out with. Like, he was the first person I went on Match.com because I was working 2 jobs, and there's just absolutely no time for me to meet anybody any other way. So we met on Match.com, and we talked about having kids and, how it is to raise them, and talked for about 2 months before we went out on our first date. And then we dated for about 6 weeks before the kids came into the picture for either of us. So we wanted to make sure we were going somewhere, but also, I was a little nervous because I'd been in that position before on Amanda's end.
Right. I was fascinated when Brook mentioned that you were co-parenting with Amanda and that you guys had kind of come to a really good relationship.
Like I said earlier, my divorce was very, very contentious. And I used to put it into perspective, I would stay up all night parsing words so that it could not be misunderstood. Because it was that bad. If I left out an and, it came back to haunt me. I mean, I can't describe how stressful and bad it was.
The problem is that Sean is so meticulous when it comes to something that benefits him. And that's in any situation, not just this, but when he wants something, he will find the loophole.
Right.
So.
And he's a scorekeeper, or at least
Yes.
I will say, and I will say I was nervous a little bit about this because I don't want this to come across as a Sean bashing, and
Right.
it's very easy for me to get into that that sort of headspace because it was really bad. Brooke entered the picture, and it slowly started to change. And we got to a point where, there's two instances, because I've kind of thought about it, that I remember vividly as being, thank God for Brooke. And so I think we started to develop a relationship because I think we both understood Sean and some of his quirks as they were. That we were able to kind of piece together that maybe leaving him out sometimes was the way to go.
I love can I just interrupt and say I love two smart women.
So the two instances that I remember most vividly is my dad was a baseball player, and Sean had some resentment issues with my dad, as it were, during the divorce. And the UVA baseball team made it to the College World Series. And last minute, my parents decided to go, and they wanted to take my oldest son, Tyler, who was the one who was into sports, to the College World Series. They were going to drive to Omaha. I mean, it was, a last minute deal. But what a life experience and what a memory for our child to go to the College World Series. I mean, because it's geared towards little boys. I mean, that's what the whole thing is, little kids. And it was Sean's turn, and he refused. And I mean, it became this heated argument, and Brooke stepped in.
Imagine.
And Brooke stepped in and was like, you need to let your kid go on this like once in a lifetime experience. The other event, and he ended up letting them go. And I was like, okay, I like this girl. And then the other event, it was a soccer game. And I honestly don't remember which child, if it was my youngest or my middle one, but it was pouring down rain and it was miserable. And I don't even remember the instance of why Sean and I were arguing over something, but there was something about that I wanted the kids to do, and maybe it was his time, and he was not agreeing. He was just being obstinate. And we're standing in the pouring down rain at the soccer game, and I was getting really frustrated, and I'm sure my body language expressed that. And my phone dings with a text, and I look down, and Brooke texted me, "Don't worry, I got this covered." And sure enough, whatever it was, she got covered. And I was like, so it was kind of instances like that was like, I developed a respect for her because she was able to get done stuff that I was unable to get done when it came to parenting issues with Sean. I felt like I was constantly beating my head. And so I started to appreciate those little things that, it's not about getting back and keeping score. It's about the kids. So that made me, I think that made the communication between Brooke and I become what it was.
And I think that's really the point, that it's not about keeping score. And it sounds like both of you are on the same page as far as let's put the kids first, perhaps.
Yeah.
Is that about sum it up?
Yeah. Oh, yes. That was definitely for me. Like, I called him out and said, if you don't let Tyler go, he will never forget this. It might be momentary for you, but he will never forget this. And you have to make up your mind if you want to be the villain or the hero in this story. So I don't have a problem calling him out.
And I didn't really either, but I think he, for whatever reason, he listened to Brooke when he wouldn't listen to me. And again, that was in the middle of this really contentious divorce too. So I was, And I was the one and I instigated the divorce.
Okay. Can I ask, Amanda, you keep mentioning that it was a contentious divorce. Is it because the marriage was sort of contentious because you guys were not communicating effectively? And I don't want you to have to reveal a big secret if I'm.
No. Yeah, I mean,
secret.
we had a lot of it. So we were friends. He and I were friends in high school, and we got together at a wedding of a mutual friend, and it was really fast. I was not super experienced in relationships, honestly, and so he indicated that he'd always had feelings towards me since we had been in high school, and I was like 27. All my friends are getting married and starting families, and I was hindsight. I can look back and think I think I just latched on to him and was like, I didn't explore all the things that a relationship, because I was unexperienced. Our relationship started falling apart pretty quickly after we were married. There were some job issues. There was money issues. So I didn't like the way he was behaving. I think probably definitely vice versa. So it built and it built. And I when we ultimately separated, we were and money was probably the biggest issue. I was working multiple jobs. He was not working. He was not even really trying to find a job. I resented him because of that. He resented me because I wasn't playing the mom role, because I was working all the time.
Sounds like a very difficult situation.
So it was a very difficult situation, and I think, and I will say now he has grown tremendously, and I attribute a lot of that to Brook. Since
Yay, Brooke.
Thank you.
I do. I attribute a lot of it to Brook, because he doesn't. He's not as He's still reactionary. He's not as reactionary, but he also, I feel like he's just grown as a person. He and I can communicate, and we don't have to have Brook intervene on a much better level than we ever could previously.
Well, and that's what this podcast is intended to do, is to provide shared experiences so other people can experience that personal growth. And, life is a lesson, we don't it's not a dress rehearsal, as they say. Right. Brooke, how does it feel to you as the second parent of the kids, and how is your relationship with them?
I guess I kind of feel like I need to start out like from the beginning. When I came in, I told Sean, like I had been in Amanda's position, so I knew how I had felt in her position, and I knew I didn't want her to feel uncomfortable the way I had with my ex-husband, because my ex-husband didn't care. He would bring, he had a revolving door of girlfriends for a little bit, and I couldn't keep him straight, and my daughter couldn't either, and that wasn't healthy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it seemed like he was doing the same thing as Sean. He was upset that the marriage had ended, so he was doing anything he could to, throw up a roadblock for me, not considering how it was affecting our child. And when I came into the relationship with Sean, I basically told him the same thing. Like, I'll listen to your story, but you have to understand, I'm only hearing your side, and I'm only going to ever think of it that way. So you can tell me what you want about her, but I won't form my opinion based on your experience with her. And I remember the first time I met the kids it was on Easter Sunday. We'd been dating for about 6 weeks, and he had asked me to come over because my child was with her father, and I was kind of bummed. It was the first time I hadn't had her for a major holiday. And so he asked me to come over and help me get their Easter baskets ready. And then I would meet the kids the next morning on Sunday, because he took them to church, and, that was their thing. And I remember, and part of this is my fault. I take my part of the blame in this, because I should have asked before we got in the car if he had mentioned anything to Amanda about me coming with him to pick up the kids. But I can tell you exactly where we were on the way to Amanda's house. Like when I finally said, hey, you did tell her I'm coming, right? And he said, no, it'll be fine. She won't even come out. She won't even see you. And I was like, but the kids will see me. And if they don't have warning, then you're dropping a bomb on them too. And that's not fair. And I'd been in Amanda's position before where, you know, my ex-husband would show up with somebody and I'd be like, who are you? And my kids are now with this person. So I was a little perturbed by that. So that's when my radar went up real quick about, okay, I need to pay attention to how he is participating in this, in his role. And
Well, that
then
sounded like a scene from a movie that you often see when people start dating somebody else
right.
after the relationship ends. But go ahead, continue.
Right. So I was a little perturbed, but, you know, couldn't change it at that point. I just remember thinking, you know, please God, don't let her come out and, you know, be upset, because I'm upset too. And I will totally be on her side, but she also does not know me and I don't know how this is going to go. And it's Easter and we're trying to get to church. I mean, it went fine. I mean, I'm sure, I can't speak for Amanda, but I'm sure she had reservations because she had no warning. And, you know, I respect her enough I wanted her to have that because I know how it feels to not have that. And so from that point on, I watched everything he did in every interaction, and I listened very carefully to how he would, you know, describe his view of how things were going with the divorce, because they were still separated when I came into the picture. Like they were still not divorced when I came into the picture, and Lily was 3. So she was not wrong when she said it took a long time. But that was also partly me, where I was like, you're pissed at her because your marriage didn't work out, because you guys weren't a good pair for each other. But that doesn't mean you get to hold that over her in her role as a mother. And you're doing nothing but hindering her when you tell her, no, the kids can't do blah, blah, blah. Like you're hindering her as a mother. So you're making her look bad in the kids' eyes, as far as like, you know, she has to be the bearer of bad news. Not that she can't get it done, but she has to be the one to break the news because he's obviously not there to do it.
So let me ask you this.
Sure.
And this goes to both of you as well, is what happens when there's a major decision to be made for one of the children? Do you all 3 sit together in one room, or right now we've got the pandemic, do you do a Zoom call?
We haven't had, I mean, not recently. I don't think we've had a major. Now, I guess the most major recent decision, and I actually didn't consult Brooke because I got the response I wanted.
Okay, that's the goal.
But as my middle son, Jacob, is a bit awkward. And is in 8th grade and getting ready to go into high school. And I really wanted him to go he's really interested in the military, and the junior ROTC program is at a different high school than our feeder pattern. And but it doesn't start till 10th grade. And I really feel like for him, it would benefit him to start high school at the high school where he's going to end up, rather than making 2 transitions, particularly after the pandemic. And so I will say I was nervous, and I was going to bring Brooke in if I needed to.
I'm always on standby.
But his response was to the positive, because I've had issues with Jacob before, and he pushed back, and I think, all of the things that you do for your children are in the best interest of the children. And I think that Sean has grown to understand that I am not doing things to be vindictive to him. If I'm making a suggestion, as it relates to the upbringing of our children and making a decision for our children, I'm looking at it. It's with good intention. It's never with ill intention. And I think he has, and again, I attribute this a lot to Brooke, is I think he's finally gotten to the place where he recognizes that I'm not making an arbitrary decision. And honestly, in our divorce, one of the things I fought for and got was that when it came to decisions as it relates to the kids, we have to have the discussion. But if I don't agree, I get to make I have the final say. And so while we have joint custody, I do have the final say. And I, because I knew early on that it was a vindictive, like it was if I said black, he was going to say white just to say white. So that was important to me. And Brooke helped, I think, get him to the point where he recognized that that's why the judge granted her this was because I was not, it was never a vindictive thing. I mean, I think divorce is really, it's hard on anybody. It can get contentious for anybody.
I think it's particularly hard when you have kids.
And when you have children. But
I was divorced, and my biggest thing was custody of the dogs. So right. I can't even imagine, and I hate to make that comparison because it's really not a fair comparison to children, but I've also studied mediation. And so this is leading to a question, believe it or not, and that is about what would you recommend for a couple whose relationship is on the brink of disaster, and they have kids? I mean, at what age do you talk to the kids about it? At what age do you think they should separate? Or do you think you should go to counseling? And I'm going to go and ask this of you, Amanda, first.
We did try counseling. We did 11 and a half hours of mediation. So as a mediator, I'm sure you can understand that. We tried a bunch of different, I really wanted to keep it together and I tried for a long time. But at some point you have to, it was not change. Nothing was changing. But I think the biggest thing that I kind of is, it's about adulting, as I would characterize it. It's about being an adult and realizing it's not about me. Yeah, it's not about, yes, you can be hurt, you can be devastated, you can cry and all of that stuff, and it's okay to show that to some degree to your children, but at the same time it is about making the choice to not talk ill of their dad in front of them and do it and believe me, I messed up. There were definitely times I said stuff that I should have not said. There were definitely times where my reaction was not the best, sure, but a majority of the time I was able to control that. And when they would say, I don't want to go to dad's, I'd be like, oh, but you're gonna have a good time at dad's. When I'm thinking to myself, well, I'd rather keep you here, I'd rather you be with me. So I think it boils down to, if your relationship is dissolving with another adult, it's about being an adult and figuring out a way to portray that to your child, because it's only much more healthy for your children to see. So when, for example, when it was really contentious, we would go to events and Sean would not even acknowledge me, but I'd get up in his face. I would go and hey, I'm here. Acknowledge me. I'm the mother of the children that we're here for, at school events and that type of thing. And I think Brooke and I would do that. It would, and then it became, I would go to Brooke and be like, hey, Brooke, how are you? So I think being an adult and acknowledge stuff's uncomfortable. Life isn't smooth. So acknowledging that, but also being adult about it.
Great advice. Brooke, I've been watching, your reaction to Amanda, and would like to sort of pose a question to you about what is it like to be the stepmom. And I think when we talked at your medical practice, you had a different term. So share that with me.
I called myself bonus mom, and that's when you stopped me and asked me to explain it. And I said, well, they have a great mom. She and I have a great relationship. And, she and I have joked before, if it wasn't for Sean, we'd probably be best friends, because we agree on so much, as far as what the kids need and how to handle things for them. And, we think about each individual child and what that child needs. And we can talk to each other very easily, because as mothers, we're more intuitive to what your child needs and wants. Not saying that fathers can't be, but we carried them. We get to claim it. Sorry. But
Let me interrupt you, and I'm sorry I have to do
Sure.
this. We're running short on time.
Sure.
We're close to the end of the podcast. And I just want to check in with both of you about how the pandemic has affected your lives. Hope everybody is doing well. How has it been with the kids and school and the stress?
So the kids are here significantly more. When the pandemic first hit, Sean lives with his parents, as do I, and it became and it still is a kind of a mantra amongst our children. It's a don't kill the grandparents.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So they're here. They were here a lot, and so Sean and I actually had to have the discussion about the going back and forth when we didn't know much, and so we stopped visitation stopped abruptly, and we went really up until from March to June with them. They were here 100% of the time. We had a couple of times where we would have like social distance backyard meetings. So, because it was not I want to keep them away from you type of deal. Because honestly, anybody who's divorced knows that those times when your kids go away, while you miss them, it
Sure.
can be it's nice.
Yes. Yes.
They're your life. You love them. You want to be in their lives as much as possible. But at the same time, it is nice. So they were here 100% of the time. And then he and I got together, and again, I attribute this 100% to Brooke, and my parents will as well. That we were able to have the conversation. Okay, we're going to go to. Let's try to figure out a way to, because I wanted to make up the time, because it's important for them to have their dad in their lives too.
Sure.
So anyway, so as a result, we're making it work. We have conversations about what we need to do. The big thing that we have is the move to stage 4. That was voted on last night, I think. And I was waiting to see what was decided, because I had signed them up to go back to school in stage 4, and now it came a little fast for me. I'm glad that they pushed it out to March 15th, because I would like to see grandparents vaccinated.
I hate to end on that note, but we are kind of out of time. And to say thank you to you both.
Yes, thank you
for being candid. I hope you've helped a lot of the parents out there, the co-parents, the dads, the moms, and even the kids, I think, can benefit from both of you. Are very much well aware of yourself, self-awareness and compassion for each other. And I think that that's what we need to see more of these days during COVID, and actually all the time. So thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Brooke, for being on the show.
Thank you.
And remember, everybody, every cloud has a silver lining. And if you want to find more information or see previous podcasts of Speaking Candidly with Candace, please visit our website, speakingcandidlywithcandace.com. There you will find previous podcasts as well as resources for mental health. Be safe, and thank you for watching.